back with another episode from the You All Right podcast. Took off last week, just really, really busy with things. And I wanted to kind of just tune out for a second. But I've had, of course, so many thoughts since then. And I just don't even know where to start for today's episode. I usually have kind of like a list of things that I want to talk about, well planned, like written out. But today, that's not the case. There is like nothing that I have in front of me. I think something that I have felt over the past couple of weeks, more or less like days, is the idea of like men going to therapy and the importance of therapy. So I do think I want to talk about that in today's short episode. But before we start talking about that, we have to ask the question, you all right? And I'm all right. I'm doing okay. I'm trying to figure out next steps for my career and also for my travel and how I can make that happen. Because as much as I would like to be content in the place that I'm a citizen in, be content in the place where I can easily buy a house and live in, I unfortunately have like a feeling of home elsewhere, which I think if you've listened to my previous episodes or if you know me, that's England, London, Europe, whatever. And it's really hard on my mental health sometimes because it's like life could be so much easier if I was just happier here. So that's how I'm doing, is just kind of learning how to deal with that and knowing that my not career will take a pause. It will just be a little bit different than what was planned out for me if I do decide to be abroad for a few months. But the more and more I think about it, the more and more I know that my mental health would suffer if I didn't go and do that. And I would just feel more stuck than anything else. So I think that the best thing for me is to focus on my mental health and to do the things that would make me happy, as long as I still have an income and a paycheck and a job. Maybe it's not exactly, what the best possibility for me in regards to a bunch of different things, but it's still a job and it's still a company that I really enjoy. I think it might be better for me to take the route of me being happy rather than me being miserable, because then not that I wouldn't want to work, but I would be very unhappy feeling stuck for months and months, and this feeling that I have now would probably come up again by January, and it would be kind of similar issue. So I think while I have a remote job, and I think while I have this graduation that I'm attending in September in London, I think it's best to kind of follow my gut, follow my heart, follow my happiness, and really choose that over just going down the career route. I don't really know how to explain all the details about it, and that kind of also reminds me to another point as we talk about mental health today, is how Generation Z is choosing kind of life over work instead of like work over life balance. I mean, I think of, a combination of both really, really is great. But when I see myself making these decisions to go abroad and choose my mental health over, over being number one at the company, it makes me realize where I am at in my life. I'm in a different stage where I've done the hustle and I've done the bustle and I've done the nitty-gritty paperwork, and I've done the, being the last one in the office, first one in. And I've done that for 10 years now. And yes, it's a new company and it's a bit different, but my mindset is a bit different. And I think this is kind of what happens to people as they get older, is they kind of want to see more of life. And they want to do something that makes them happy, because not that like a career will always be there for you, but it should. And I think that I need to prioritize my wanderlust that is dying to come out again. I didn't think it would be this difficult to not live full time in a place that I've always wanted to live in. And I don't mean like 6 months as a tourist. I mean forever, long term. But life really makes it difficult for you. And I just don't know why. Like, listen, I can't control these feelings. I really can't. I've always wanted to live in London my whole life. I went there many times thinking that, after this one, I'll be done with it. And it was just like not the case. And you can't really control what feels like home. I mean, I was born in New York, raised in New Jersey, And now our family has a house in Florida too. And how London feels more like home than any of those places, I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. I mean, I do feel like New York and New Jersey are home too, but it almost feels like if you go to those places, you're kind of just doing what everyone else does and you're just settling for, second best instead of like really fulfilling your dream or living out your dream. And I think I'm a dreamer, babe. I really do think that that's my life is not taking no for an answer or not just settling because that's what society tells you to do. They definitely make it hard, society. Society definitely says, oh, if you want to live here, you've got to pay X amount or marry so-and-so or find a job that's willing to sponsor you. And for a lot of positions and people, that's almost impossible. Which I don't understand. I'd give anyone my US passport, take it. I don't want it. But yeah, like just over the past week, I've been really trying to like consider things and think about my options and talk about it with my higher ups. And honestly, just thinking about me feeling stuck here for another few months would make me really unhappy because I would just feel like there's no way out. And I mean, to me, I prefer just saving money at my parents' house to actually buy something than rather go waste money in New York City, where honestly, I'm not even happy in New York City. It doesn't really make me that happy as much as I thought it would previously. I mean, I lived there for over 6-7 years. It's nothing new to me, but I think I'm sick of the high rent. I think I'm sick of the dirty places. I'm sick of the dirty people. It's like London is New York, but cleaner and prettier and cozier. Whereas New York is just like grimy and grungy, and that appeal only lasts so long in my head. Again, my opinions, but that's what I'm saying. Anyways, I have realized over time of how I do think that this podcast, we might have to. There might not be a pop culture section to this podcast. What realistically this podcast may be, and which it seems like it's turning into, is more of like dating, relationships, and mental health and wellness. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's good to find a focus of something that you love talking about. And I love talking about it. And I don't know why I think that my opinions are valid to share, but I still share them. So, and I'm glad that you guys tune in because I do know that they're more than I expected. People are listening, and all over the world, literally all over the world, in a million different places. And it's cool. It's great. But I don't know why you're choosing to listen. But anyway, today's episode is going to be kind of more about mental health and going to therapy and why it's important for men to go to therapy starting yesterday. Obviously, I have a brother and a father who I grew up with. So I got to see their interactions, and I think we all learn from our parents on what we like, what we don't like, what we want in a partner, what we don't want in a partner, or a friend, things like that. And growing up, I don't think my brother will get mad if I share a little bit about him and his story, but growing up, my brother was a very quiet kid, and I mean severely quiet. It was kind of always a joke that Alex, his name is Alexander, just never said anything. And I always thought it was more because he was an introvert, and I always thought it was more because, he was shy. But in actuality, that wasn't the case. And on the other hand, the other male that I saw in my life was my father, and he was very talkative in the work sense, but when it came to emoting and portraying feelings, he just didn't do it. He didn't emote. I know. So I don't know how to say, like, that's just kind of what I saw in the males that I grew up with. And I see it in, our generation, and I see in the younger generation of men who just really are been raised, as a society of males have been raised to not express emotions and not even to understand their emotions. And it's a very dangerous thing because now you have men in their 30s not knowing how to commit to someone because they don't understand how to communicate in a relationship, and even men in their 40s and 50s kind of doing the same thing as well, or dealing with like a divorce in that sense, and not knowing that like there could have been things done or said to prevent that. And it's hard for males to accept that therapy is not like a feminine thing, or that going to therapy doesn't make you, let's say it, a pussy. Going to therapy, for any men who's just curious, going to therapy will make you more of a man than you could ever be. And not to scare any of the men. But women are finding, well, science is finding that women will, as a species, outlive the male species because we're finding ways to sustain life without them. And I think this is in more ways than one, not just in scientific, but also in emotional and in relationships and how we are. Women crave an emotional connection, and this shouldn't be just a woman thing. This should be a human thing. The reason why I suggest going to therapy for any man or boy is that they're usually not taught by their fathers on how to emote and how to communicate. And a lot of the time a male looks up to, the older males in their life for guidance and reassurance and things like that. I mean, maybe some lucky ones out there have really great mothers who can help them do that, and fathers, but the majority of what we're seeing these days with the younger generation of men and the older generation of men is that there are difficulties in the word emoting, and communicating. And it's not all your fault. Listen, society has taught you from a young age that men don't do that. Men, they don't feel, they're strong, it's not necessary. And after a while of years and years of this suppression, it can bubble up in unexpected ways, whether it be in anger and frustration or sadness, depression, or the way that you interact with people or females or in relationships. And so that's why I suggested is either to stop it before it starts or to start therapy to know how to start dealing with the emotions that you might not even know that you have. And why I'm saying this because my brother a couple years back decided to go to therapy. And honestly, it was the best thing that he ever did. Because he started coming out of his shell as he got older. I know that he was quiet growing up, but it wasn't because he was shy and it wasn't because he was an introvert. It was because he didn't even know what to say. He didn't know. He just rather not say anything instead of say something. And he didn't know how to identify how he felt. And I don't know if that's how a lot of men think. I know that men are known for compartmentalizing situations. I have to assume they do that with emotions too. So it's really hard sometimes to know, hey, I'm feeling this. What emotion or what box does this emotion belong in? And sometimes, the therapy will help you bring that out. And I think that's helpful for your life, for your mental health, for your relationships, and for your future children. And it's unfortunate that we have right now, like obviously the older generation of men, as in like our fathers and grandfathers, who kind of not have given up on it, but find it, they're just so brought up on thinking of it, how stupid it is and how unattractive it is and how unmanly it is. But realistically, the women, the younger women these days find it so attractive. They love more feminine men who are in touch with their emotional side and feminine side. They love it. So I think that there's hope in the younger generation if we keep talking to younger men about their mental health and how it can help them, and how to start not being afraid to share how you feel or being more vulnerable, because unfortunately our parents and our grandparents did a horrible job of promoting this kind of unhealthy over masculine behavior. I was talking to my father the other day, and unfortunately he's still very much in denial that things should change in the way he communicates, or can change. And therapy to him and to most men don't seem like even an option, or an option they're willing to take. It seems like the most silliest thing you can do. They'd rather shut up and stop complaining, but that really filters out to other people and other things, and it really is not okay. And I understand how even my father got in this position, because his dad was a Vietnam vet or World War II vet, and obviously those men went through a lot of traumatic stuff themselves. So either they kept to themselves, had unhealthy behaviors or habits, and that filtered on to their children and their relationships. So I know how hard it is to get out of a rut, but I'm hoping that there is hope. And I'm hoping at least maybe it starts with the men that are, younger and we can currently speak to, who don't have such a built up and long time of suppression. I was talking to my dad, and I told him how I felt about like this lack of communication and lack of emotion. I felt like every conversation with him is like a business deal, and that like I'm talking to a robot. I just said, I just want a human. I don't want a robot, right? And I think that comes with like every relationship that we have with someone, and they just can't see. I don't know, it's really hard. It's really difficult for them to see that. But I know how much therapy can help because, I know people who have had guy friends go through severe depression and be on the verge of suicide. And it's really hard for those men to help their friends because they themselves don't know how to help themselves. Some people don't understand or have the ability to have the option of even having a therapist. And kind of going back to like proof of concept and proof of experience of seeing, a male in my life go to therapy, it really changed him so much for the better. I was able to have conversations with him that I haven't been able to have my whole life. I got to meet him. You know what I mean? And I think that might happen for a lot of people if they try. Now him and I can have conversations that are not surface level, and he can hold relationships in a different way. And it's helped him just learn how to react more and listen more. And it's really helped the whole family overall because, well, now we got someone in the mix. Before he was like dead silent. So it's absolutely great to see that effect. And I've been in therapy on and off for my whole life, and it's always helped. I think that though, as a woman, I think we just are naturally more in tune with our emotional self, and it comes a little bit easier. And maybe that's because society tells us we're allowed to be emotional as women. But I don't think I have a problem with that. But I think, my sister always talks about how like males just have a lot of suppression. And I believe that to be true too. And I don't know how we can make more men go get therapy because it really filters out into other things, like especially with dating. I have seen just so many men, even on like first, second, or dates, like spill out their heart to me. Maybe because I asked different questions that they weren't used to, or maybe I asked a little bit more than normal first date. And it's like, whoa, you really needed someone to talk to. And I didn't even think this was like a first date conversation. Like, I think you really need to go get some help. Not in a bad way, but like obviously maybe some people are burnt from other relationships, or maybe some people are traumatized from other relationships, or they're still heartbroken. And, as they say in England, maybe they don't want to talk about it with their mates, but they should talk about it with someone, and maybe not their first date. Maybe they should talk about it with like a professional. I mean, listen, and I haven't seen I'm not saying that every man needs to go get therapy. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I've seen some really grown men, so to say, hold the best conversations and ask and listen. Great. But I think all people need to go at least once, because there might be situations that they don't know how to deal with emotionally, or they might feel overwhelmed, or they need advice that might be better getting it from a professional rather than a friend. So it's not just only males need to get therapy. No, all humans should probably go at least once to therapy. But the stigma is males, if they go to therapy, it's kind of weak. And I would say opposite. And I would say, if anything, if you're a male listening to this and you're like hesitant to go, I'm telling you how many women like I talk with would find it so attractive, because no offense, they're like sick of putting up with bullshit that the men put onto the woman unknowingly, unconsciously. And then the women have to deal with it and almost become the guy's therapist, or have to deal with the way that they act or react in unresponsible or bad way, because they don't know how to handle their emotions elsewhere, and it spills over into their relationship. That's just my take on that. I think it would be cool that if this podcast were to get a little bit bigger in the next year, to maybe develop some sort of not charity, but organization where we can get men to get mental health help easier. Maybe something that's not as intimidating as a therapist. Maybe even just, I would say books, but everyone has access to books. Maybe like a book. Maybe that's a one size fits all books that might help. Just the minimal work that they need. I wonder if there's a way to like kind of help the general male public. And another thing is just, I think overall it might help, this whole, how we keep pushing back people getting married and engaged. With this new generation of males, I think it might help them learn how to hold relationships and want to be in relationships and learn how to commit and learn how to be transparent, because right now what our dating society is doing, or dating culture, is really unhealthy in the way that we ghost people and the way that we hold relationships for years and then end them knowing that we were never going to hold them forever in the first place, or things like that. It might help the overall like dating culture that we have that's unhealthy, and it might help the people who keep pushing and pushing off settling down a little bit. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, obviously, I think that it's good to not settle, but I also think, it's a little frustrating as a female going through the dating process and finding what seems like decent males, and then there's always like something comes up, and it's usually about them not being emotionally ready or something not lining up. And like, ladies, let's be honest, we all know that that's bullshit. If a man's ready, he'll do it. You know what I mean? But I don't think a lot of men, I know it's a poor excuse, but I don't think a lot of men are ready, because I think that they have a lot of suppression and shit that they've built up over years that they need to go through by themselves, and they don't even know it. So if there's a way to help that, in a sense, like, fuck, let's do it, because I'm so sick of like seeing male what's it called, like, not dating gurus, like, give advice to a woman on how to interact with a man. It's like, well, have the man learn how to do it himself too. We need to stop asking women to do all of the work, because at this point we're the first person to swipe on Bumble, right? A lot of the females that I know are the first person to make the move, or the first person to go up to someone. We're the first person to hold the "are we in a relationship" conversation. At this point, they need to start learning and start doing the work. And I think that this is what could really help them, because right now, if you're lost in your own thoughts, the last thing you can like do is learn how to be better in a relationship or be a better boyfriend. I think that the first step is to know you inside and out, and know how to know your emotions, handle your emotions, learn how to communicate properly and betterly. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. We're sick of the fuckboys. We really are. We're sick of the men starting a relationship and I'm not ready because I'm busy with work. That's bullshit. Let's be honest, right? So I do think a lot of this has to deal with our mental health and their mental health. And I think it's one of the first steps that needs to happen in order for them to have better relationships with everybody and better relationships with themselves. I think that there's a lot of feelings of shame in men for going to try and work on such thing. But I really hope I can reassure at least someone out there, letting you know that it's the best thing you can do, and it's also the hottest thing you can do. Seriously. Anyway, this is like the little tangent or discussion that I wanted to have today. Again, I do apologize. I did not really prepare anything, but I think it was good to kind of also get this off of my head and speak a little bit about it more. Go get therapy. Go work on your mental health, because it's important. And it's important for you. It's important for your family. It's important for your friends. It's important for your relationships. It's important for your kids. I could go on. Because sometimes we can become overwhelmed and lost in our thoughts. And it's okay that we don't have the answer, but someone else might. Or they might have a better suggestion for us. Therapy can teach you on how your relationship with your mother has affected your relationship with others, or watching the relationship with your parents have affected the way that you communicate with people. So it can really help you in all ways. And it could be about things that you didn't even think about. Anyways, I'm going to log off for today because I've got a lot going on that I got to get to. But I wanted to, make sure that you I haven't done it in a British accent. You all right? Make sure that you all right. And if you're not all right, to go to like go get help for that, or go look into maybe self improvement or self help, because it's okay and it will be beneficial and really helpful for you. And otherwise, you know, I will see you in the next episode. And I appreciate all of your support on these listens. And if you want to follow us on the You All Right podcast Instagram and TikTok page, go right ahead. Comment what you want to hear next. And always check in with yourself. Have a good one.